So your friend survived this incident after being shot 4
Yes,
times.
he did. He wound up surviving. He got shot 4 times, but none of them were fatal.
They avoided his heart, or
Yeah, they avoided all his major organs. And so his sister actually, I saw him one time at his sister's house. I saw him one time after the incident at the hospital. I saw him one time after that, and he was doing okay. It survived. It missed his heart and his lungs and stuff. I think he did have one that went through his lung, and he was having a hard time breathing, running out of air and stuff or something. It was a long time ago, and I don't really remember exactly what the details was, but I think he had one that went through a lung or something, but it didn't. He lived.
yeah. And then you said he died later from another gunshot.
Yeah, he was still living the lifestyle that got him in the hospital, even though he was having problem with his lung or whatever. He was still living that lifestyle. He never did get out of that lifestyle, I don't think.
So you say this happened around when you were 35, do you think?
Something like that.
And how many years later did it take for you to stop?
I didn't stop until I was about 40.
Did you do that by yourself, or did you seek help from people, or?
I basically did that by myself, but I did it with AA, and I say by myself, but I don't really believe that, because I don't feel like it's anything that I did by myself.
Yeah. And I guess you said this is about the time you met Master.
Yeah.
For people who watching, you don't know, we're referring to Paramahansa Yogananda.
Yeah. That's when I found Paramahansa Yogananda. I found his teachings and started practicing his teachings, and when I got hooked up with Ananda and Paramahansa Yogananda, I never looked back. I kept going from there. So all that drug days is kind of like just a memory. And I guess some people would look at it as a bad memory, but I look at it as not necessarily a good memory, but a learning experience. It was kind of like a learning experience. It's just something that I had to go with, that I had to live through to get to where I'm at now. I would have preferred that it be another way, but that's what I needed, evidently.
Yeah. So, gosh, I have a bunch of questions for you. How do you have opinions now about the legality of drugs and marijuana?
What you mean?
Yes, like for example, in recent years in Washington, for example, and other states, marijuana has become legal to purchase for anyone over 21. How do you feel about that?
Well, I know a lot of people that went through this as an experience similar to this would probably have a different view on that, but I don't necessarily. My drug experience, anyway, I don't really have a disliking for the laws that legalize marijuana and stuff. I personally don't do it because I feel that it's it's basically an obstruction of, it's more like it deflects my ability to, it's kind of like it affects my, it's an illusion. You know, it's all, you know, if you're not thinking clear-headed, that's what this path is all about, thinking clear, being able to think clear-headed. And and drugs interfere with that. So, but as far as the legal logistics, some people would say, you know, marijuana helps them and with different kind of pain, for example, problems or something. And I can't deny that, and I ain't going to deny that. I mean, it's got its purposes, or I wouldn't be here. That's the way I feel about it. But we don't. But you know, so is rattlesnakes, but we don't play with them. You know.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. Is rattlesnakes are okay, but I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. Do you think it's dangerous for all people, or do you think that there are some people who are more susceptible towards a dark path with it, or?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that's It isn't. I don't think it's dangerous for everybody, but like I say, unless they are on a path like I'm on, and you're on, where we don't want to delude ourselves to thinking that it's okay to have a crutch to get to the God or whatever. I think that but it don't necessarily take everybody down a dark path like it did me, because I was looking to get high. Some people just look at it as an alternative for a pain, a headache or something.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and if you do it right, I figured that, and it don't affect your spiritual path that you're on, the individual might be on, there's nothing wrong with it, in my opinion. But and that's just my opinion now.
Sure. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, what about the legalization of other more like drugs in general, more serious things?
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, with the legalizing harder drugs, but then again, I have to look at it as kind of like they did in the when they had the what do you call it, when they legalized when they made alcohol illegal,
The prohibition.
the prohibition. You know, a lot of the if they made drugs legal, uh, it would get a lot of people out of jail that don't really need to be there. But at the same time, I can't really say that that's the answer to legalize. I ain't saying that that's the answer to legalizing. I would have to, you know, that's for somebody else to say. I can't play God. I don't know the answer to the kind of problems.
So it sounds like you would prefer people don't go to jail for these types of things.
I would prefer people not go to jail for this kind of things. But then again, it's I can see that there's the other side of the coin too that says, you know, that if you legalize drugs, only people that would do drugs would be the illegal people, you know, people using them for wrong motives and stuff. And so it maybe the answer wouldn't be to legalize it, but then on the other hand, it would free a lot of people up.
Yeah, I guess some people would argue that making these drugs legal would say that would be society saying it's okay to do these things.
Yeah.
And you don't want people to think it's okay.
No, it's definitely, it can, yeah, because it can, especially if it's in your karma to that you have a dark, that it would take you down a dark path, then you definitely don't need to mess with it. And you don't know that until you actually mess with it. And so I can't recommend, I don't know that it would be a good idea to try and find out.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that I would want to do drugs just to find out if I could or not. Because what if you can't?
Right. So in some cities, they have these like safe spaces where you can shoot up or get high or do whatever you need to do in those spaces. Do you think that providing these kinds of spaces for people can be supportive? Is that a good idea, do you think?
Well, you know, I don't know, because I don't know. Like I say, I can't answer that question because I don't know enough about it. But it has its good points and its bad points. Like I was saying, you know, that might prevent homeless, or it might the homeless situation, or it might cause the homeless situation. I don't, you know, it might be worse. I don't know, because people might not have the initiative to go out and get a job because they are strung out on drugs. But then again, it would, you know, if people give out free needles, for example, it would cause people to not get hepatitis from using dirty needles. So who can say I can't anyway, say what's wrong and what's right, you know.
Okay, well, I'd like to talk about your process of getting off drugs. So about what time did you find Yogananda, and what was the timeline in terms of your breaking your addiction? What happened first? Did you find Yogananda first, or did you break your addiction first?
No, I think I broke my addiction first. Like I said, now that I can look back at it in hindsight, I see where Yogananda was in my life all along, but I didn't know that he was. So the way I see it, it would be I got off drugs and then found Yogananda, because that's why AA is so prominent in my life, is because yoga, I feel that, now this is me personally again, I feel that Yogananda wants me to use AA to help other people not go down that same path that I went down. But he also wants me to not try and push it, because even he says that, you know, you can't make somebody do something that they don't want to do. They have to have the right consciousness to not want to do that to begin with, you know. You can help them go down the right path, which that's what I think that's what I try and do when I help somebody at AA, is help them not go down the same path. Help them find the consciousness and not go down that path. So to answer your question, I would say that I found Yogananda after I got straight, because when I got straight, when I started seeing things clear-headedly, that's when I went to Ananda Village when I
Mhm.
started, but I had already started going to uh, AA. That's why I started getting clear headed because I started going to AA. And then I was able to figure out, well, I wanted something else. And I started looking for something else in my life. And that's when I found Ananda.
So you had mentioned that you had already started going to AA sort of in your late teens. Were
Yeah.
you going to AA through that whole period from your 20s and into your 30s as well?
Yeah, but like I said, wasn't paying them no attention. I was just going there because at a certain point, I don't know exactly what year it was and stuff like that, but in the beginning, back in Georgia, the cops would just pull you over. I remember when I was a kid, they would pull me over. I wasn't even old enough to have a driver's license, and so they would pull me over, and I would have a beer. For example, I would have a beer in the car, and they just tell me, they'd say, take the beer out between your legs and pour it out, and I'd pour it out, and then they'd say, okay, now go home and go to bed. And that's all there was to it. And but then when they started cracking down on DUIs or DWIs, they started, the law got involved and started making people go to AA. And that's when they started having AA at different spots. They started having different meetings today, different AA meetings at different spots. And actually, my first AA meeting that I went to was at the hospital that I went to when I got shot. And that's where I first found my first AA meeting. Then I found it through jail. Another one. Then I started going when I started getting more serious about it. Like I said, I had gotten serious about it, and then the law caught up to me and got me for the past, some of my past wrongs, what I had been doing in the past. And they put me in jail for a little while. I had to do a few months. And that's when I was going to have to do the 10 years. And I found AA in there too. They started taking me to meetings because I got into the work release program because of the lawyers and stuff. And I got in the work release program, and they started taking me to meetings. They would load us up in a van and take us to meetings.
So during those 5 years where you were really trying to get off drugs, can you tell me more about that? How hard was that for starters?
Well, actually, I can't remember it ever really being that hard for me. I do remember that there was a period of time there where it must have been hard because I was having dreams and sweating and stuff like that, having to detox from the alcohol and drugs. But that was a gift of master, I think, too, was the fact that I can't remember that. I can't remember suffering in that time. I just remember the good parts about getting off and not having to worry about it no more.
When you go to AA, I'm sure you hear from people who are having difficulty with it. What are their experiences with the difficulty and So you didn't find that to be true for you?
No, I didn't find it to be true for me. I didn't have no problem getting off. When I decided I was going to quit, uh, it's kind of like all of a sudden I woke up. I went to bed using, and I woke up clean. And but see people coming in AA, and I think I probably went through some of this, and but don't remember. That's the part that I don't remember, is having to go experience some of the things that I see people experiencing in AA when they come in and they don't want to be there. But see, they don't understand, and most of them, though, they don't understand God. They don't know. They don't know if they believe or not. Sometimes they even say they don't believe. They are kind of like atheists, and some of them come in and they're agnostic. They don't. They don't. They kind of like I was. They believe, but they don't. They haven't really seen no proof of it working in their life. And so they don't know if they believe or don't believe. And atheists know that they believe that there is no God.
Yeah.
And so I see them both coming in both ways. And they, and even a lot of the atheists that come in there after they started getting clean, and their head started clearing up like I did. When I talk about seeing things more clearly, even them believe it, or they start to believe in a higher power of some kind. And then it may turn, and for a lot of them, it has turned into something that they call God.
Yeah.
It may not be the God that I recognize, but it works for them, So that's all that counts, in my opinion.
So during that 5 years, you had said that you had always believed in God, but you didn't have a trust in God. When did that trust? I assume it came about in those 5 years of your recovery.
Yeah, I started believing I believed in a God, but I started trusting him when I saw it working in this other people's lives, and I wanted to be more like them. I saw them people that I talk about coming, that are in AA, that come into AA that I help. I started seeing them, and I saw them when I was started going to AA. And I saw that they would come in and didn't believe in God, and all of a sudden they started getting clear-headed, and they started seeing that there was something working in their lives. And a lot of them, usually the ones that got the AA thing and started working for them, usually they started to believe in a God. And that's when I started trusting. And so I started trusting God when I saw that. I started trusting, well, there is something out there. And I admit I didn't probably recognize God like I do now. But I believed in some kind of a God. And I started trusting in that, whatever God that was for me at the time. I started trusting in that, and and over the years it has grown.
So why did it take 5 years, do you think, or roughly speaking? Did you have like moments of relapsing, or?
No, I never relapsed. Once I went to a treatment center, and once I went to a treatment center, I had made my mind up when I went to the treatment center. See, I went to jail And when I talk about the past catching up with me, the law catching up
Okay,
with me in the past. Okay, well, I started believing in trusting in a higher power at that time. I had started trusting in a higher power. And it took them 5 years because I excuse me, I totally went blank there. So I think that's a little bit of the abuse kicking in.
You've been talking a while. It's only common to miss something here.
Yeah, I can't remember what I was what the question was.
Yes, I guess you said that you got shot when you were about 35. And so when did you find Yogananda?
I found Yogananda about 40.
For about 40. So between that time, it sounds like your past cut up with you and you had to go to jail.
Yeah.
And how long did you go to jail for?
Well, I went to jail for like 6 months, and in them 6 months, I started believing in God, and I started trusting in God because I had started believing in before my past caught up with me. And I had then decided, well, this is what I want to do. I want to go to AA and I want to start paying attention and change my life and be like these people. But then my past caught up with me and put me back in jail in the system. And so, but I didn't ever lose that trust in God at that time. I started believing in God, and I started trusting in God. And when I came out, that's when I changed my life and went to the village and moved to the village. And before then, I started meditating, but I didn't know exactly what I was meditating on. I would meditate, but I was doing a Buddhist meditation back then, and that helped a lot. And getting me to want to find something, and that's when I went to. The original plan was to go out just to get in the car, get my car, and go out west. And like I said, I had I had Cherokee in my background, and I was just going to go out, drive out west, and find a reservation and start learning their way about God. And then I found Ananda. When I was looking for that, I found Ananda article on Ananda, and I called them up and went and worked in the kitchen out there for a couple months.
I definitely want to talk about Ananda. But before we get there, I'm still trying to understand your recovery process. I think it's a really important topic to talk about because for some people, that's such a difficult process. And I would love to know how, as you said, some people don't recover, right? Some people just die, or some people end up in jail. So I think the recovery process is really important. Do you think that it was easy for you in a way because you had really hit rock bottom and you just decided that was it?
Yeah, that's the problem with, in my opinion, that's the problem with the courts getting involved with AA and sending people to AA. when I went to AA, you pretty much had to go there because you wanted to go there. Now the courts will send you there because you got a DUI. And and a lot of the people that come in there don't want to be there. They just passing through. They're just doing it because the judge wants them to. And so they don't never, they usually just kind of like, we joke about it having a revolving door, AA having a revolving door. It's just people coming in and going out that don't want to, that are there to just get their slip signed, saying that they have been to a meeting and are complying with the court system. But when I went there, I had done hit my bottom and I wanted to be there. So it worked for me. And I didn't have to experience a lot of that fighting to learn if I wanted to be there or not, and learn how to quit drinking. So when all I had to do was learn how to quit drinking, and my life took off from there. But a lot of these people that are coming in now, they have to learn, well, I want to quit. You know, they don't even know that they want to quit.
Right.
They just are there for the court system. And so they don't even have no idea that they want to quit. In fact, a lot of them will tell you, well, when I came in here, I didn't come here to get clean. I came here because I had to get my slip signed.
So is the idea behind sending people to AA for a DUI the fact, is it like the court is saying you've let alcohol ruin your life if you got a DUI, right? And so you should go and get some help, and is that it, you think? Or?
So what are you asking? Do I think it's a good idea for about the court?
Yeah, sure, yeah. Or
Okay.
what should be done with people like
Well, I don't think there is a definite answer for that. I think it's just a change in their level of consciousness and the world's level of consciousness. What we would call the yugas.
Mhm.
I would think that that's just it helps because it gets a lot of people in there that don't know that they need to be there, that when they're come because they're forced to go, they actually learn something. They actually learn that they need to change their life. But some of them have to have it, and they're the ones that I talked about that can read the writing on the wall. They're the ones that say, well, you know, this is what I need to do. I want to be happy like these people that have 20 years. I want that. And some people come in there and they say, oh, well, they're just lying. They ain't got 20 years. Ain't nobody can quit drinking for 20 years. And they don't get it. And so they have to go back out and suffer some more. And so do I think it's a good thing for the courts to send them in? Yeah, sometimes it helps them see that they need to change their life. And sometimes it don't help because it's just a way of coming in there to get their slip signed.
right.
So it works both ways. And I don't really, some of the old timers at AA will say, well, I don't think it's a good idea because it waters down AA. In my opinion, it isn't so much watering down AA. It's just the way life has changed. That's just the facts of life, you know. It changes, and it's just our consciousness level right now. The world's consciousness.
So you had mentioned that after you got shot, it was only 2 weeks later that you found yourself in the back in that area buying more coke, or something like that. How long did that go on for? Because it sounded like you had made up your mind and then you were still there. So I guess that was kind of the recovery
Yeah,
process
that
I'm
was
interested in.
that was part of the problem. Was I haven't made my mind up at that point. I hadn't made my mind up that I wanted to quit. I mean, I thought I did sometimes, but sometimes I would still, in the beginning, when you decide you want to quit, at least for me, I still, the drugs had enough hold on me to where I would think, well, I want to quit, but then I would find myself around some drugs and I couldn't say no, or I didn't know how to say no. I didn't even know if I really wanted to say no. I thought I had a problem, but I thought, well, maybe I quit, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll quit tomorrow. And tomorrow never come. And so I would find myself back in that same place, selling drugs, buying drugs, in the same complex that I was in when I got shot. I found myself back in that the next week. And you would think, to the normal person would think, well, once you got shot, you would quit doing drugs. Well, that ain't the case of a drug addict's mind. He thinks, well, this time will be different. And this is how, and he can even tell you, well, this is why it happened. And it may be an excuse to you, you might see through it, but to him, it all makes sense. Well, this is why it didn't work this time. This is how I'm going to do it differently next time. And it'll all work out. And so he's just kind of like lying to himself.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing, was just kind of like lying to myself and telling myself that it would be different. And it never was. And then I finally hit my rock bottom.
Yeah.
There too.
Now, funny enough, you had mentioned that you had gone to jail a few times before you got shot throughout your life. And that didn't count as rock bottom for you, did it?
No, it's funny how rock bottoms work. There's a lot of different levels of rock bottom. Like one time you'll think getting locked up would be, for somebody else, it would be rock bottom. But for me, getting locked up was just part of the process. And it wouldn't be my rock bottom. I would think, well, it's the bottom. It's a low point, but it'll be better tomorrow. And so I would do the same old thing.
Do you think that was because you had already gotten locked up as a teenager? That was just kind of normalized for you?
Yeah, well, it played a lot of a part in it. It was just kind of like the norm for me.
Yeah.
And for some people, it might not have been the norm.
What when you went to jail, when you went to jail, what are you thinking when you're in there? Are you angry? Are you feeling guilty or planning about what's going to happen when you get out, or what's going on?
Well, for me, I can't speak for how, because I don't know what's going on in other people's heads sometimes. Yeah. But for me, it was just kind of like, since it was the norm, it was just kind of like, well, what am I going to do when I get out? Am I going to change my life? No, my life's fine. That's what I was thought. At that, a lot of them times in the beginning, or in them earlier times that I would go to jail, I would think, well, I ain't doing nothing wrong. So why not I need to change my lifestyle? And so I would just think about, and I wouldn't be angry because that was part of the process. It was just, for me, it was just kind of like, well, how am I going to avoid the fights, the big guys? How am I going to avoid them getting mad at me? And, how am I going to survive in here? That was only thing I was worried about is how am I going to survive till I get out, and then I'll be all right, and I can go back to the way everything to the way I was.
How bad were the prison experiences? Like, was there lots of violence
Well,
there?
no, it's not for me. Nowadays, supposedly it has changed a lot, but for the worst. Back when I was going to jail, you could kind of, as long as you kind of like mind your own business and stay out of trouble.
Were there lots of gangs there?
No, not that. That's the problem. That's the difference in the way it is now and the way it was then. There wasn't a lot of gangs and stuff. You had different cliques of different people, but you could avoid them learn how to deal with them and kind of survive. And now you kind of like there's so much going on, so much gang stuff, you got to watch your step a lot more, you might say. So but for me, it was a really bad experience. It was just kind of like a detour. It was just kind of like a part of the process. Again, it's just something that I had to deal with because I got caught, but I had no intentions of changing anything. I just wasn't going to get caught next time, and that don't work. But I didn't see that.
Yeah.